Hey guys, I am so excited because I have a new short story out. It's called The Harbor-Mistress and it is out at Cosmic Horror Monthly now. Woohoo! I wanted to do a little video to talk about the story behind the story and how it came to be, and also a little bit about the history that went into this short fiction. Now, The Harbor-Mistress is a piece of weird fiction and it is a feminist retelling of Robert Chambers' original weird fiction classic, The Harbor-Master. Now, the story is in the public domain and it was written in the early 20th century. And Robert Chambers obviously is very famous for something called The King in Yellow. You might have heard of that if you're a horror fan. But he's also quite famous for coming up with these kind of really strange sea creatures, which have really influenced everything from the creature from the Black Lagoon to Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. When you're thinking about that kind of sentient water monster, this is probably comes from The Harbor-Master. Now, the reason I wanted to write a feminist retelling of it is because the story kind of got me pretty frustrated, actually. I read it and I can recognize it's a classic of weird fiction, but there's one woman in the story and she is a talking character. She's not just a side character, but she's only ever referred to as Pretty Nurse. So the women of Black Harbor don't have names, and I wanted to explore that with the main protagonist, who is also nameless, and she goes by the Harbor-Mistress, and she looks after all the ships and the sailors coming in and out and the fishing boats. And she's very knowledgeable about the sea. But she's also an atypical female character, you know, she's quite solid, she smokes a pipe, she chooses not to wear stays. So when a man comes to the harbour in search of a rare animal called an orc, the Harbor-Mistress must help him. But meanwhile, she uncovers that something fishy is going on, and literally quite fishy. Well, this story did come out after reading Chambers' original. The other idea came from wanting to write about an atypical female character. At the time, I'd also been reading about Mary Anning, who was a female palaeontologist who didn't get the credit she deserved. And she's actually the first person to discover the plesiosaur and the pterosaur in the UK. And she used to wander the coast of Lyme Regis, which is now known as the Jurassic Coast, looking for fossils in order to pay the bills. Now, she was unrecognized really for her contributions to science at the time, but obviously since then people have come to recognize the huge contributions she made as an amateur paleontologist. What struck me about Mary Anning is how pragmatic she was, but also these contributions to science. She was really bucking what men expected of her as a woman at the time. And I just had this mental picture of a woman wandering the coastline looking for fossils. And this combination of fossils, feminism, and essentially, you know, early 20th century weird fiction combined to make this story, The Harbor-Mistress. This story was also a study in perseverance. Like, I read this story back in 2019 and I tried a few markets to get it published, but then obviously the pandemic happened and a lot of family stuff was going on. So I really didn't send out a lot of stories in 2020. But I'm so glad it's found a home at Cosmic Horror Monthly. I feel like it's a really good place for it, and I can't wait for you guys to check it out, read it, and let me know what you think. So I'm Kat Clay, I'm a Melbourne writer. If you like writing, video games, nerd stuff, please hit subscribe. And thanks again for watching.